The Great Lakes. Together they make up 20% of the Earth's fresh surface water. We have Michigan, Superior, Huron, Erie, Ontario. Since the Griffin was lost 3 centuries ago, 10,000 vessels have been lost on their ways. But this special is about the greatest of them all. Owned by a mutual insurance company and chartered until 1983 by Ogilvy Norton. This ship name is, of course, the Edmund Fitzgerald. Built in 1958, 729 feet long, and named after Northwestern's chairman of the board, Edmund Fitzgerald. It was built to compete with several similar freighters in terms of how much load it could, in terms of its length, in terms of how much cargo it could carry. Over its brief 17-year career, it beat its records for the most cargo hauled by a single ship, the first to haul 1 million tons through the Sulaks. By 1971, it was not the longest freighter on the Great Lakes, but it was still the pride of the Ogilvy Norton, and captained by the finest, Ernest McSorley, a veteran of 44 seasons, and at 18 had become the youngest master on the lakes. Today I want to tell you about the voyage, its last voyage, the one who would make people think about how safe our freighters are. For a long time, people thought that we didn't think about freighters of such size and stature sinking in just less than a heartbeat. Right now, I would like to talk about that ship's last voyage. It started right over here by Duluth Superior, picking up 26,116 tons of taconite pellets. And about right here, it accompanied the Arthur M. Anderson over by Benton Harbor, Minnesota. And among themselves, they decided that instead of the usual shorter southern route, they would take the longer northern route, which would give them protection from the storm. When the voyage first started out, it was a relatively calm lake, but by the morning of November 10th, the storm started whipping up in a fury. And then as we went up the lake, by the time we got right about here, the storm really started getting nasty. But still, there was no panic. The smaller Edmund Fitzgerald, being the faster of the two vessels, was ahead of the Anderson by 10 to 20 miles. But by mid-afternoon, the two ships had lost sight of each other. The Edmund Fitzgerald would never be seen again. By the time they got towards the end of the lake, there were the weather report was out, 90 per hour winds and 30-foot waves, and all freighters were asked to seek shelter as soon as they could. Problem is, when you get to this point, it's pretty much no, there's no place to go. So Captain McSorley and Captain Bernie Cooper of the Anderson decided that there was no choice but instead make a make a trip for the Whitefish Bay. By the time they got past Michigan Island and Caribou Island, they entered an area known as the Six Fathom Shoal area. An area which tear ship to shreds. A fathom is 6 feet, so it's 36 churning water. And Captain Bernie Cooper, in an interview, said he was closer than he wanted his own ship to be. And about 3:10, Captain McSorley reported that he had lost both his radars, lost a vent, and it developed a starboard list. And it asked Anderson to keep an eye on him. For the next 4 hours, Captain Cooper kept an eye on McSorley. As soon as they, about 7 p.m., they cleared Caribou Island. And then about 10 p.m., Captain McSorley asked for another radio fix. And this is an afterthought. Captain Cooper asked, "Oh, by the way, how are you making out with your problems?" And Captain McSorley replied, "It's going on like we're holding our own, going like an old shoe, no problems at all." No message was sent from the Fitzgerald after that. About 7:30, Captain Cooper tried to call McSorley. Nothing. He desperately checked his radar, which had lost sight of the Fitzgerald, and asked other ships to check to make sure his radar was working and his radio was working. But they all said it was fine, and none of them could spot the Fitzgerald. Captain Cooper immediately called the Coast Guard and told them that them and Fitzgerald has lost, but they brushed it off, thinking that it's probably safely in Whitefish Bay. But Captain Cooper persisted, again tried to call the Coast Guard. They sent out helicopters to comb the area, and the Anderson, along with another freighter, the William Clay Ford, was sent out to inspect the area. Over a period of a week, they recovered the ship's 2 lifeboats. One looking like it had been bitten in half by the teeth of the storm, several life jackets, and other debris, but no bodies and no survivors. About a month or so later, they found 2 large objects on the bottom of Lake Superior. Later that spring, the Curve 3 was sent out to explore the wreck, and they came out with these pictures. This is from the pilot house. Oh boy. Well, anyways, this is what the Edmund Fitzgerald wreck looks like. Oh, come on. Okay. Okay, this is what the Edmund Fitzgerald wreck looks like today, 170 feet from each other. All these drawings are from the Coast Guard. This is a bow section picture of the wreck. Oh, by the way, I picked up these drawings from the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Frederick Stonehouse. This is the bow. This is the stern of the wreck. And this is a starboard boom. This was one of the big problems of the wreck. The entire wreck was covered with mud, and a lot of the portions that the Coast Guard needed to see were covered. And here's the stern again. And finally, here's a rear view of the ship. But you get the idea. When the ship hit the bottom, it had been horribly damaged when it hit the bottom, but so far, nobody knows what put it there. Over years since it sank, there's been several theories about what caused it. Captain Bernie Cooper had said that it had broken and either suffered a stress fracture, in other words, broken two, but the theory he supports is when it entered the Caribou Shoal area, that it struck a reef and one was sinking. But the theory that the Coast Guard had presented was that it had folding hatch covers, that the clamps are a very good clamp, but you have to be a real He-Man to really get them good and tight. And some of them were, the Coast Guard believes that they got so careless they didn't really tie enough, and the wire just got into the hatch covers. One, I'm sorry, I don't think it really has much merit, is the so-called Three Sisters theory, that says two waves came on one side, one wave came on the other side, and pushed the ship down. But so far, every theory, every kind of theory you can think of has been put forth, but not a single one of them could have been proven or disproven. All because, for one simple reason, nobody survived the wreck, and no one actually witnessed it sink. So it's up to speculation as to actually what caused it. Jacques Cousteau in 1980 again explored the wreck, and in 1989, little ROV took color 3D photographs of the wreck. And then just last year, the Great Lakes Historical Society decided to bring up the ship's bell and make it a memorial to the men who had died, and replace it with a brand new bell. One that one would be centerpiece for a museum at the Lighthouse Museum in Paradise, Michigan. The families had requested it, and it asked that there be no other expeditions out of respect for the family. This gives you an idea of how bad. It's the storm. Lake Michigan, Lake Superior and the other Great Lakes have claimed many ships. The Edmund Fitzgerald just happens to be the most recent. The Daniel J. Morrell, the Carl D. Bradley, the Griffin, the Charles S. Price, but none stand out quite like the Edmund Fitzgerald, for many reasons. The mysterious circumstances that it sank. I mean, 1 minute it was on the radar, the next second it wasn't. Another reason, the great mystery that surrounds the sinking, the many theories that have been brought up. But this song probably brings up the memory more than, excuse me. This song was put out in 1976. It's called Summertime Dream by Gordon Lightfoot. Okay, call it Gordon Lightfoot. It came out a year after the ship sank, and he sang a song called The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I wish I could play it for you. I just don't want a copyright lawsuit. But anyway, I really would encourage you to listen to it. It's a beautiful song, and accurately describes the Edmund Fitzgerald's last moments. The other alternative is this book that came out, this tape that came out just recently, Gord's Gold 2. It has more songs to it, and it also has the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald on it. And if you're literally inclined, there have been 2 books put out by it. This one was written, I don't have to sing on a cover, but it was written by Robert Hemming, called Gales of November. It talked to, in this book, he actually talks about the individual crewman, tries to best as he can reconstruct the ship's last moments, and also has some photographs of the wreck, one photograph of the ship itself, and also tries to put a human touch to it. Not only show the ship lost and that was the end of it, it actually talked about the lives that have been lost in this great tragedy many crewmen who were going to retire that year, and people who were just in their mid-20s, getting a start in their just getting a start in their career, and yet, in in a blink of an eye, their life was snuffed out. But this is the book I really would recommend. It's called Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Frederick Stonehouse. It's been updated over the years. It actually shows a copy of the Coast Guard report. It actually shows even more photographs, both some debris that's been brought up, some other ships that have been lost on the Great Lakes. It shows several photographs of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And the main difference is the Frederick Stonehouse book is factual, Hemming's book is more human. But at the same time that Stonehouse does facts, he actually tells you what he thinks is wrong with the current Coast Guard system, how it took them so long just to get a helicopter out there, how their equipment was out of date, how they would dismiss theories for ridiculous reasons. I think it'd be excellent reading, and I would encourage you to read it. And also, I don't have it with me, but this library has a video called The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I have it in my own library. It actually shows Frederick Stonehouse in there, as well as a video of the wreck, the theories that have been put forth. And I would encourage you to check it out as soon as you can. The Great Lakes are probably the haven for the many ships that have been lost. But the one I like to think of most is the Edmund Fitzgerald. The one wreck that probably stands out in more minds than any other. For all the facts that I've just stated, and maybe many others. Well, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed the show. And I hope you'll remember the 29 crewmen that have lost their lives in the tragedy. And you'll listen to Gordon Lightfoot's song and these two books I've recommended. I thank you for your time, and have a good day. Great Lakes. Together they make up 20% of the Earth's surface, for the longest freighter on the Great Lakes. But it was still the pride of the Bells of Vienna, and count them by the finest, Ernest McSorley, a veteran of 44 seasons, and at 18 had become the youngest master on the lakes. Today I want to tell you about the voyage, its last voyage, and chartered until 1983 by Olga B. Norton. The ship name is, of course, the Edmund Fitzgerald. Built in 1958, 729 feet long, and named after Northwestern's chairman of the board, Edmund Fitzgerald. It was built to compete with several similar for surface water. We have Michigan, Superior, Huron, Erie, Ontario. Since the Griffin was lost 3 centuries ago, 10,000 vessels have been lost on their ways. But this special is about the greatest of them all. Owned by a mutual insurance company, traders, in terms of how much load it could, in terms of its length, in terms of how much cargo it could carry. over its brief 17-year career, it beat its records for the most cargo hauled by a single ship, the first to haul 1 million tons through the Sulaks. By 1971, it was not the